Sandlot. Classic coming-of-age movie about a group of friends who play baseball in their local sandlot and run amok. Released in 1993 and set in 1962, it tells the story of Scott Smalls, the awkward and shy new kid in town who is struggling to make friends. He tries to play baseball with the Sandlot kids but is let down by his inability to catch and throw. But regardless, the group's leader, Benny, encourages Scott to join the baseball-loving circle of friends. However, behind the fence of the Sandlot lives a monstrous dog known as the Beast, who eats all the balls that get hit over there, without the kids daring to ever try and get the baseballs back. But after a ball signed by Babe Ruth finds itself over the fence, the Sandlot kids must find a way to get it back, in this much-loved and adored movie which is kind of like Stand By Me, only more baseball and less dead bodies. Hi, I'm Minty. And today we're looking into 10 things that you didn't know about the classic 90s movie, The Sandlot. A film that many people grew up watching and still have a love for. So join with me and let's check it out. Number 10. The Sandlot is kind of based on a true story. The Sandlot was written and directed by American scriptwriter and director David Evans, of which before The Sandlot he wrote and produced the Richard Donner movie Radio Flyer, as well as uncredited writing for the science fiction movie Class of 1999. However, given that The Sandlot was his first movie as a writer and director, it was something of a personal story to him. In fact, some of the events in the movie are based on true events that happened to his brother while they were growing up, where Evan's brother tried to join a group of young boys who were playing baseball, but they thought that he was too young. And when their ball was hit over a brick wall, he tried to prove himself by fetching the ball. But instead, as with the Beast in the Sandlot, he was met with a big monstrous dog, who clearly wasn't happy with the small boy entering his territory. Now, if you think that this resulted in a heroic chase around town where the boy actually saved the dog from being crushed by a fence with them now becoming friends, then you'll be disappointed, as in real life the kid got bitten by the dog and, well, that was it. The Wendy character, who was a lifeguard at the local pool, was also based on a real person called Bunny, who Evans remembers from his childhood, who, like Wendy, also wore a red bathing suit. Number 9. Original title. The title of The Sandlot is a reference to the hangout location where the kids play baseball in the movie, which by definition is a space of empty land where children play games. The title always got me somewhat confused as a kid, as I didn't know what a sandlot was. However, the original title of the movie was actually The Boys of Summer, which actually makes more sense, as the title suggests it's exploring the summer of a group of young lads. However, the title had to be changed because of a pre-existing baseball-related book, which was also called The Boys of Summer. Published in 1972, the book is an autobiography of author Roger Kahn, and the book focuses on the Brooklyn Dodgers and their 1955 World Series victory. So given that there was already a baseball-related story called The Boys of Summer, the movie became The Sandlot. Let's not forget that there was also a song called The Boys of Summer too, by Don Henley. So at least the movie went with something more original. Number 8. The boys were intended to be younger. Unlike the final film where the Sandlot kids are prepubescent, originally the boys were meant to be quite younger, more in the age 9 to 10 bracket. However, when screen tests took place, it was felt that 9 and 10-year-olds were just too young and that bit too difficult to work with, so it was then decided to bump up their ages to about 13, making the film not about small children but instead kids in their early teenage years, as kids of that age were easier to direct. The kids aside, The Sandlot also had some well-known faces in supporting roles in the movie, such as the legendary James Earl Jones, who plays a retired baseball player who went blind and befriends the kids. Raiders of the Lost Ark actress Karen Allen plays Scott Small's mum, and Dennis Leary played Small's stepdad. along with Pleasantville actress Mary Shelton, who played Wendy, the pool guard who the boys have a crush on, and director and writer David Evans himself provided the narration of older Scott, giving it something of a Wonder Years feel. And finally, the Beast Dog was performed by 2 English Mastiffs, and for some scenes where the dog was to look more horrific and perform stunts that a real dog couldn't perform, an actual puppet was built and used. Number 7. Filming locations. Despite being set in San Fernando Valley, The Sandlot was actually filmed around Utah, specifically Salt Lake City and Ogden. The actual Sandlot that was used was filmed at Glendale neighborhood in Salt Lake City, and surprisingly the vacant patch is still there and untouched, so it's nice to see that they didn't build a McDonald's or car park over it. Surprisingly, the movie was shot in just over a month, 42 days to be precise, which is actually pretty quick filming for a Hollywood feature film, especially when you take into account the age of the main young actors. I'm guessing the shoot was a swift one, so the boys wouldn't miss out on too much school. Yep, luckily with the movie taking not too much time to film, there wouldn't be any major incidents that took place over filming. Or was there? Number 6. Difficulties with hot and cold temperatures. The biggest obstacle the cast and crew of The Sandlot had to face was just how hot it was while filming. You know, I always thought the movie looked hot and dry whenever I watched it, so now that I know that it was unbearably hot while filming, it actually makes sense, as it seemed that there was a heat wave while filming, as temperatures could often get up to over 100 degrees. So you can just imagine how difficult that would have been to film in and the effects it had on the young cast. In fact, the actor who played Scott Smalls, Tom Gurry, got so weak from heat wave while filming, he collapsed into one of the cameramen in a scene where his character was meant to be running around. And in an unfair, ironic twist, the day where the pool sequence was filmed was actually 56 degrees, of which the cast found filming in the pool to be unbearably freezing. And you can even see the kids' teeth chattering because it's so damn cold. So I guess when you're making a movie, sometimes you just can't win. It's either too hot or too cold. Number 5. Basic Instinct shenanigans. On screen we see the Sandlot boys get up to all kinds of mischief, such as chewing tobacco, which for filming was actually licorice with bits of bacon. Yuck! However, it seems that behind the cameras, these young actors were equally mischievous, as while filming, the young boys snuck into a screening of Basic Instinct. Yeah, as in that movie where Sharon Stone has her famous police interview. Matty York, who played Yeah, explains that Smalls actor Tom Gurry got help from his older brother to sneak them all into the movie theatre to see the risque thriller. Victor DiMattia, who played Timmy, further explains that it was a big deal for them to sneak into Basic Instinct, and a significant experience for them all, almost making it sound like some kind of rite of passage for the young cast. And given just how raunchy and violent Basic Instinct is, it must have been a real eye-opener for those kids. Number 4. Lawsuit. Although most of the audience got swept away with the youthful magic of The Sandlot, there was one person who was not laughing. A man who went to school with writer and director David Evans, who claimed that Evans based the Squints character on his former child self from back when he went to school with Evans, and he felt humiliated over his supposed portrayal in The Sandlot, and thus was suing 20th Century Fox for damages. However, there wasn't enough evidence that Squints was based on Evans' former classmate, and the case was thrown out of court. Although, had this guy been successful in suing 20th Century Fox, then that means anyone can sue a movie studio if they felt a particular character may have been based on them, which is kind of crazy. Thankfully, because the case was a failure, it meant that movies can continue to make characters partially based on real people, without getting sued. The irony is, the guy felt humiliated and embarrassed that Squirts is meant to be him. But no one would have made the connection if he had never made the lawsuit, as thanks to that, everyone now probably associated him with the character. Whoops. Number 3. Reception. The Sandlot was released in April 1993 and made $34 million on a $7 million budget, so it more than quadrupled its money. But it wasn't a huge knockout success either, it was impressively moderate. It got praise from critics too, with Roger Ebert calling it a summertime version of A Christmas Story. The Sandlot, however, did make more success with its home video release, with it making a further $76 million on its VHS and DVD releases, where it has gone on to become a fan favourite for a generation who grew up watching it. Like E.T. and The Goonies, it's a movie that those who grew up with it have a powerful bond and love with it, and it's often considered one of the best children's movies of the 90s. I can see why The Sandlot took off with its VHS release, because from my own memory there was hardly any promotion or advertising for the movie. I never even saw one trailer, unlike movies like Little Rascals and Dennis the Menace, which were everywhere. But suddenly, when The Sandlot came out on home video, everyone knew about it and was talking about it. Number 2. Sequels and TV series. Given how popular The Sandlot was, it was inevitable that there would be a sequel. But strangely enough, the sequel didn't come out until 2005, 12 years after the original, with The Sandlot 2, which was a straight-to-DVD release, which is usually never a good sign. This time the story is set in 1972 with a new gang of kids, but I was never interested in watching it as I didn't want to see a sequel without the original kids. David Evans returns as director, along with James Earl Jones reprising his role, but the sequel still didn't get the best reviews. Then in 2007 there was another straight-to-video sequel called The Sandlot Heading Home. I've never even heard of this movie till now, but according to the movie's Wikipedia description, Luke Perry plays a baseball player living in 2005, who, quote, gets knocked back to 1976 to relive his childhood. Yeah, now time travel is thrown into the mix. We've gone from a simple yet humble story of kids growing up and playing baseball to breaking the walls of time. However, The Sandlot Heading Home got slightly better reviews than Part 2, but still nothing crash hot. To be fair though, these movies were kind of destined for failure, as those who grew up with the original would have grown up and moved on. But because they were marketed as sequels, new audiences probably wouldn't have known about the original and thus wouldn't have been interested in watching the sequels. Bottom line is, the sequels were probably left a little too long to make. In 2018 there was an announcement of a Sandlot prequel, but nothing happened. And more recently there is supposedly a TV show in the works with Disney+, which is set to feature the original cast. Well, we'll just have to wait and see what the future brings, unless we try and travel in time, but then we might bump into Luke Perry. By the way, rest in peace Luke Perry. Number 1. Alternative title. In Australia, The Sandlot got a slightly different title. Down here the movie was called The Sandlot Kids. I'm pretty sure it was the same in the UK too. In fact, growing up, I've never known this movie to be anything else but The Sandlot Kids. It's only been recent that I've been aware that in the US, it was just simply called The Sandlot, thanks to people requesting me to make an episode on The Sandlot. The first few times I got confused, I was like, you mean The Sandlot Kids, right? Yeah, you kind of left the kids bit out of the title. But no, just simply The Sandlot is its original US title. So why the name change? Maybe because the word Sandlot isn't very common in Australia? Unless it is and I've just never heard of it. Maybe to put more emphasis on it being a kids movie. Maybe, but even now when I talk about it, I keep wanting to refer to it as The Sandlot Kids. But no matter where you're from or what the title is, this movie appeals to everyone, as it takes us back to those innocent times of our childhoods, when the world was fun and exciting, and hanging out with your friends was the best thing ever. I love The Sandlot's nostalgia. It's nostalgic for the 90s because that's when the movie was made, but it's also nostalgic for the 60s as that's when the movie is set. And let's face it, who doesn't love a good dose of nostalgia every now and then? It's a great watch, and I highly recommend it for people who love children adventure movies like Stand By Me and The Goonies. Anyway, I'm Minty, and you're killing me, Smalls. Yeah, that was my favourite line in the movie. See ya!